This forum is designed specifically to empower the people in our community. And we are grateful for the vision of the pastor of this house and the prelate of ENY3 for allowing us to move forward and grow and understand the political process so that we can enhance the quality of life in our community. So we welcome you all. We welcome those of you that are viewing on our live stream. And we want to make this a very comfortable, convenient evening. We want you to get to know the candidates that are asking for your vote. And we want them to get to know you. An informed community is an empowered community. At this time, our bishop and prelate, Bishop Frank Anthony White, is coming to greet.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Oh, let's try that one more time. Good evening.
Good evening.
Well, it is such a beautiful, beautiful evening that the Lord has given to us, and we are most grateful to be here once again to discuss matters and to hear from various persons who desire our support. The stewardship of power is a sacred trust. Let me repeat that. The stewardship of power is a sacred trust. We are living in a day that I don't think any of us have experienced before. The attitude and disposition of a divisiveness has literally gripped the heart and soul of America. We must have men and women who serve in the public square be accountable for our support. In my particular community, men and women fought, they lived, and many died for the right to participate in the democratic process of America via voting. I believe it is tragic for any community to not participate in the voting process. We must have our public officials engaged in the betterment for the entire community. The Bible says, well, since I'm a preacher, I'm not going to preach, but let me just say one thing, Reverend. The Bible says, by one blood, God created all men. I don't believe that Jesus Christ died on the cross for there to be racism, for white people to hate black people, and for black people to hate Hispanic people, or Hispanic people to hate Asians. We must all learn to live together in the common spirit of love and respect. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said all the world is a neighborhood, and that indeed has become a true statement. Just a little more than 2 years ago, way across on the other side of the planet, in a small province, something took place that had an impact on the entire world. Indeed, all the world is a neighborhood. One community cannot afford to thrive and flourish when the community next to it is in terrible disarray. We must work together for the betterment of the entire human race. No race is better than another race. And so tonight we want to hear from persons who are present and give you an opportunity to engage in positive conversation so that indeed the gift of trust, public trust, can indeed be felt and it can be appreciated. I want to appreciate our social action ministry director, Shelley Brazley, for doing an outstanding job. She has the heart of the community at her heart, and she has done such an outstanding job down through the years of educating, empowering, and caring for the citizens of our community. Our host on tonight, who you will hear in just a few moments, we appreciate you once again for your ministry of presence on this evening. Well, I'm ready for some exciting conversation and discussion on this evening, and please, everyone, be at home, feel free, listen attentively, respectfully, and at the appropriate time, you will be given an opportunity to engage and communicate with our candidates on this evening. God bless you. Have a great evening.
So we are ready to begin. We hope that everybody had an opportunity to pick up our newsletter. It's a special newsletter for election. It has some information in here that will help you, early voting information, deadlines, when you can get your absentee ballot applications. Those of you that have elderly people at home and they may not be able to come out, please, there are applications on the back table for absentee ballots. Fill those out. I will take them to the Board of Elections myself and make sure that you are mailed the ballots that you need for people that may not be able to make it out. It is absolutely essential that we find creative ways to get as many people, your family members, your next door neighbors, those people around the block, we have to be the mouthpiece to encourage them to go and vote. On your newsletter, I think I put this graph in every single thing that I do because I just think it's really important. And it is a chart on the front of the newsletter. Citizens, voting age, population, turnout by race and ethnicity. Do you guys see that? The red line represents the African American community. The blue line represents the Caucasian community, right? And you see in the early years, there was never a time where the percentage of African Americans came out to vote in a greater percentage than the other population, except 2008. Get to 2008, for the first time in the history that they were charting this information, now we outnumbered the percentage, right? 2012, the same thing. Now let's look at 2010, which is a midterm election, which is what we're going to have in about 10 days. If we came out with that same velocity and voted, we could sway any midterm election that we ever have. A lot of people don't vote because they feel like it's hopeless, we're hopeless, we don't have an option, they're going to do what they want to do. It starts with you. It starts with us understanding how to empower ourselves. So if we start talking, I was talking to a group of young people, and I was saying to them, look at our roads, look at the quality of life. It is a direct reflection on the percentage of us that go out and vote. I live in Hempstead. There's about 34,000 registered voters in the incorporated village of Hempstead. Any given election, actually the last trustee election, we had 2,000 people come out to vote. That's not even, what percentage is that? 1%, 2%? We have to start understanding that our numbers, unity, gives us the power, right? And so I always put this chart on here. I want you to look at it and just look at how powerful that is and what we're able to do if we vote. We can change the dynamic of our community. We can change the quality of life, but we have to believe that we can. And I love having these gatherings in church because I get to encourage God's people to walk in your authority. Walk in your authority. So we're going to get started. We have a dynamic person that's getting ready to be the monitor of this forum. I'm looking around, and I appreciate those of you that came. So far, I think we have 2 candidates. We have a congressional candidate here, and we have our Senator Thomas here. I don't have my glasses, but is that a candidate over here? No? Is it? Is that Lamont? No? It is. Okay. So we have 3 candidates so far in the House. Now, we had a robust array for you, but what we're going to do, like family, is flow. We're going to first ask, we wanted to, this was the podium for the Democratic Party, this was the podium for the Republican Party, right? And we invited both parties to come. You're going to see tonight who actually is here. But what we're going to do is start with the highest office that's here tonight. And that candidate, before I introduce you, let me go back. I'm getting nervous, I apologize. Our moderator for this evening is a dynamic sister. She is the founder of Sisters in the Struggle. She has been working in the community for decades. I think we from high school, we've been kind of doing this, right? And she is phenomenal. She is none other than our sister minister, Dr., we got to add doctor now, Soretta C. McKnight. Miss Lydia, Lady Lydia, is the timekeeper for this evening. Thank you, Lady Lydia. Now, initially, we sent out the schedule to all of the candidates, and it was going to be 1 minute to answer questions, 1 minute to introduce themselves, and if they had to rebut, it was going to be 30 seconds, excuse me, and then 2 minutes to close. It looks like we have 3 candidates. We can probably stretch that a little more, but we're going to flow. We want you, of course, the moderator, you know, she's a walking encyclopedia. She has all kinds of questions. She has plenty of questions. But we want you to be encouraged to get up and ask your questions. There is a microphone in the center aisle, and we do have someone that will be cleaning the microphones between each person, so you don't have to worry about that, okay? But please, feel at home, ask the questions that you want to ask that's going to affect your community, okay? And I think I've covered everything. So we're going to ask Mesh if you would escort our candidate for Congress up, and I'm going to turn this into the hands of our own Sister Soretta McKnight.
Let's give Sister Shelley a big hand, beloved. I'm going to follow Bishop White. You can do better than that. Absolutely. And before we get started, I need to acknowledge the Queen Mother who's in the house. Is that all right, beloved? I need you to salute Dr. Juliet White. Absolutely. So we're gathered here one more time, this time in preparation for the general election, November the 8th. Does that sound about right? That's right. That sounds about right? That's right. Okay, and we are going to remember what Sister Shelley told us, that this is the Democratic platform to my, and come on, you got to talk to me, and this is the Republican platform to my, to the left are, and to the right? Okay, so let's get started. Can we jump in? Let's do it like this. Welcome Laura Gillen, who is running for Congress in the 4th Congressional District, where we are located, and you're back again.
I am back again.
Wonderful.
I'm glad to
And-
be back.
And wonderful to have you. And then Mr. oh, he's not here. The Republican, okay, I can't talk to Mr. D'Esposito. Let's talk to you then, Laura Gillen, if you would.
I'm glad to talk to you.
Introduce yourself by way of sharing a little bit about yourself so that we might be able to understand who Laura Gillen is.
Thank you. First of all, I just want to say thank you to Bishop White. It's great to be back here. I've worshiped with you here many times, and I'm really happy to be here. Thank you, Shelley, for putting this wonderful forum together. You did the same thing for the primary, and I thought it was a really great, informative evening, so I thank you for that. And I thank the congregation for putting this together and informing voters and telling them how important it is to vote, and even just outlining all the candidates. There's a lot of candidates on the ballot this year, so thank you for doing that. So good evening, everybody. I'm so glad to be with you. I am Laura Gillen. I'm running for Congress in the 4th Congressional District. The district runs basically from the Queens border out east to Wantos-Seaford, runs up to Old Country Road, and then down to the beaches. So yes, Freeport, Roosevelt, they're all in the district, District 4. So who I am, I was born in this district. I was born in Rockville Center, grew up in Baldwin. Now I'm raising my family in Rockville Center. I have 4 kids. My whole life I've really been very much involved in community service. It's something that I enjoy doing. I get great satisfaction from it. When I was young, I volunteered at the hospital. Then I worked at Camp Anchor, which is a camp for special needs children and adults, as a volunteer. Then I worked there as a lifeguard. When I went to college, I worked in a soup kitchen. After college, I worked for an organization called GMHC. When I graduated from college, that's when the AIDS epidemic was really exploding, and AIDS was basically a death sentence. And I wanted to do something good, and I thought that the people who were living with AIDS at that point in time were kind of looked at as like our modern day lepers, the way they were in the Bible. And nobody wanted to help them. And I thought, to be a good Christian, one thing I could do is go and work with this community. So I had a buddy who had AIDS, and I helped him with anything he needed. I eventually wound up going to India, where I worked for Mother Teresa, Saint Mother Teresa, in her home for the dying in Calcutta. Oh my goodness, I've gotten 30 seconds. So I did that, then I wound up becoming a lawyer, and now I'm gonna get fast. Then I decided that my desire to serve my community would be best served by running for public office. I ran to be the town of Hempstead supervisor. I was the first Democrat in 112 years to win that seat. I went forward and served this community in that role, where I advanced a good government agenda, not a partisan agenda. There's no Democratic or Republican way to run a town. There's just a good way and a bad way. And every day, everything that I put forward was to try to better serve the residents and not look at government as a way to serve myself.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
So you, according to what you just shared, public service is something that you take very seriously.
Yes.
So listening to the brief resume or CV that you just outlined, what in there qualifies you for the United States Congress?
So I've had a varied professional career. I think, first of all, public service and volunteer work gives you compassion and empathy and makes you appreciate other people of all walks of life. And I think that is a very important thing for anybody who wants to serve in government to have. I also worked as an agent. I worked in business as an agent in an entertainment agency for a while. And then I went to the NYU School of Law, and I practiced commercial litigation at the highest level of practice in New York City at a big Manhattan law firm, and then at a law firm out here for a number of years. And I think my professional experience has really helped me as a public servant, serving as the town of Hempstead supervisor, because you think of creative ways. As a lawyer, you always have to think of creative ways to win your case. You think of creative ways to solve problems and get things done. You also know that many times, and I think this is something that we really need in Washington, so as a litigator, every day I was paid to talk to someone who was being paid to disagree with me. and we had to try to find a way to work out the case, because litigation is so expensive that it doesn't make sense for most people who are suing each other to take a case all the way through to trial because it's so expensive. So generally what you do in commercial litigation is you talk to your opponent and you say, this is what I need for my client, and he says, this is what I need for my client, and somehow you work together and you find a way to get things done, and that's what we need in Washington, and that's what I'm going to do when I get there.
So let me ask you, Candidate Gillens, because you mentioned about being supervisor.
Yes.
With the town of Hempstead. So what happened? Why only one term? What was there no building of capacity? Was it you? Was it them? How did that whole thing work? Because you're going now for an elevation. You're talking about the United States Congress.
Yep.
And you only did one term as supervisor in the town of Hempstead. Share with us what happened.
So I'm really proud of the work that we did in the town of Hempstead. I was the first person to do a multi-year capital plan. Any business doesn't just say, okay, let's plan what we're going to do next year and we'll just make it up the next year after that. They look many years ahead. So I developed this capital plan so we could have a roadmap of how we were going to use taxpayer dollars to invest in the community. And one of the things that I did was I made sure that I prioritized communities that had been ignored for decades in the town of Hempstead, where their parks weren't fixed. I don't know what that was. Where their parks weren't fixed, and other communities had really nice parks. So every day, again, I advanced that agenda. What happened? I was outspent in my campaign 2-1 in my election, and I was still only lost by less than 1%. But one of the things that happened is we did not have good Democratic turnout. As Bishop White said, and I think Shelley said, turnout is so important. She has that map. We didn't have Democrats turn out when I was up for re-election, and I still only lost by less than 1% with 2-1 being outspent.
Mr. D'Esposito? Oh, I'm sorry, he can't answer that question. And I'm doing it to make a point, beloved, that when folk take the time out to come and to share with us and to show up, that should be a big plus in the checkoff column. Hello? Okay. So let's dive into a couple of issues, if you don't mind. We're talking about you being our local representative on the national stage, since we're all participants, if you will, in this process. One of the hot button topics going into this election cycle, which they have termed the midterms because it is halfway before we get to another presidential election. There's been a whole lot of talk around Roe v. Wade and the idea of government being involved in personal decisions. What's your take on that? Are you pro-choice, pro-life, and why?
I'm pro-choice and I'm pro-woman, and I don't believe that the government has any role in telling a woman what she needs to do with her own body. This issue is personal for me. When I was about 18 weeks pregnant, I had a fetal demise, and I was in a very devastated capacity, and my doctor said to me, you need to have a procedure, which is an abortion procedure, and you need to have this right away. And it's a very risky procedure, so you need doctors who aren't afraid to learn how to do this. They're not afraid of going to jail to do this procedure, and so you need a skilled surgeon to do that. And so I had to have this procedure, and luckily I was able to do so. Some of the abortion bans that they're talking about would make me carry that child to term or wait for it to come out. With that, there comes risks of hemorrhaging and dying, or getting a massive infection and dying. I had 2 little children at home. I couldn't die. I had to live. I don't know what's going on with this microphone, but I had to live to take care of my other children. And so I had that procedure. And you know, there's a lot of talk right now. They're like, oh, don't worry about it. It's not going to affect you in New York. Well, guess what? A national abortion ban will make abortion a federal crime in every state, including New York. And the concept to me that autonomy over your own, I don't know why this is doing this, autonomy over your own healthcare decisions is, it's not a federal right, it's a state right. You know what? No. It's a human right. And it's offensive to me to say that any government in any state could take that right away from a woman. And I want to protect all women in this country, not just women in New York.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Okay, not a problem. What would you categorize as the number one, give me the top 3 priorities if you were elected to the United States Congress. Give me your top 3 priorities once you get into office.
Well, I do think codifying Roe v. Wade is a top priority. I do think getting guns off our street is a top priority. Common sense gun legislation. You know, I have a supporter of mine who's a veteran, and he said to me, oh, you know, Laura, I'm not sure I've supported you in the past, but I don't know, I like the Second Amendment. I said, look, I like the Second Amendment too. If you're a law-abiding citizen and you want to go hunting and you get a background check and you go off and hunt, that's your business. But I said to him, what do you think? Do we think we should have universal background checks for anybody purchasing a weapon? He's like, I'm okay with that. And I said, do you think that we can ban military-style assault weapons from being sold in gun shops? Are you okay with that? He said, yeah, I'm okay with that too. And I said, do you think that it's good to have nationwide red flag laws to make sure that people who are suffering from mental illness cannot get their hands on weapons? And he said, I agree with that too. So I said, well, you do agree with me. This is common sense, ladies and gentlemen. There is no reason why any common citizen should need a military assault weapon of war. It's just common sense. And what are those weapons being used for? My opponent told a reporter that they were good for hunting. Hunting what? Hunting children at school? Hunting people worshiping at churches and synagogues? Hunting people at nightclubs just trying to enjoy themselves? Hunting people at 4th of July parades. That's what they've been used for, and that's why we need them off the streets. So that's number 2 priority. And another priority, which is not maybe one of the top attention-getting issues, but a big priority for me is mental health. I think we have a mental health crisis in this country. And, you know, all the crime that they're talking about, like, oh, this is all this crime that's being committed, and it's because of the Democrats. Well, you know what? It's being committed with guns that come from other states that don't have strict gun laws. Like 74% of the guns that are used in violent crime here come from other states where they don't have strict gun laws. And it's also being perpetrated by people who have serious mental illness. And either they don't have access to medication to treat their mental illness, or they don't have a support system to make sure they stay on their medication. And we've seen in our communities, even before COVID, in my community, there are like 3 kids a year committing suicide. It's an epidemic right now. And now I'm starting to see my kids' parents are committing suicide. And the depression after COVID has only made things worse, and it's really impacted the elderly. I've seen it affect my parents, my father in particular, the depression that comes after COVID from being isolated. You can't see your family because you're so fearful for your health. And what's the problem? The problem is we don't have enough resources. We don't have enough therapists to help all these kids. And it's so expensive. If you want to send your kid, if your kid's depressed and you want to send your kid to a therapist, I mean, very few therapists take insurance. And the ones who don't take insurance are going to charge you $200, $300 an hour. Who can afford that? If your kid has to go twice a week and it's $400 out of your pocket a week, who can afford that? This is a serious crisis. I actually met with Michael Dowling, who's the CEO of Northwell Health, and talked about this issue with him and talked about different ways as a member of Congress I can try to get money to healthcare facilities like Northwell or like Mount Sinai, which is in this district as well, to support them as they support people who have lower income to make sure that mental health is available to them.
Okay, thank you for that answer. This will be my last 2 before we turn to see if anyone in our audience has some questions. I believe there's a microphone behind me. Yes, beloved?
Yes.
Okay, so get your questions ready. We've only got a few more moments for candidate Gillens. Environmental justice. We know that in our communities there are lots of dumping, illegal pesticides and all kinds of things, they say. The water is not of the best quality, for example, if we look at the village of Hempstead. Through what we call, quote unquote, the Black Belt, which is in your district, how do you anticipate addressing some of these issues from the federal level?
So I think this is a really important issue. We were talking about it last night. There was an incident in Elmont where there was a cancer cluster there. And people would complain and people would complain and nobody did anything about it until one activist in Elmont got really loud, the squeaky wheel. She petitioned and petitioned and petitioned, and finally they tested the wells and they found that the wells with the water supply there were contaminated. So it should not take one person just having to take time out of their private life and agitate to get attention that they need. We should have equal testing of all our water throughout this district. And if I'm setting federal dollars to help put in filters, for example, in our water supply, that's something that's now required under New York state law. They have to remove emerging contaminants such as 1,9-dioxane and the PFAS out of the water system. If I'm sending federal dollars to help put those filters in, I'm going to make sure there's reporting requirements and that the federal dollars are being spread out equally all over the district.
Wonderful. And what about education with respect to resources being needed in our educational institutions locally and not just on collegiate level, but we're talking school districts because the tax burden is just out of control. What are you going to propose, or how will you help us from the federal level to ensure that, A, we get the resources necessary to be able to provide the services, especially for the influx of students that we see are in and are continuing to stream in? How do you ensure, how would you ensure that the necessary resources would come to districts like a Roosevelt, like a Hempstead, like a Freeport, like a Westbury, and on and on and on, because we know other districts have always eaten very well. How do you make sure that we get our portion of the pies?
So one of the things that I did when I was Hempstead supervisor, as I said, I was trying to find creative ways to do things, and I decided that I was the first municipal officer to ever have a routine meeting with all the school superintendents in the town of Hempstead. Everybody was invited, public schools and Catholic schools and any school that was in the district. Any superintendent for that district or principal for that district was invited to come. And one of the things that I talked about first with them was saying, how can we as a township help all of you, and how can we help you save money? Because that's the biggest part of our tax bill. So if we can help you save money, then that can help everybody in the town save money. So I brought in a consultant who talked about how they could share services, right, and bargain together to reduce their costs on supplies that they need for their school. I also talked to them about grant writing, and that's something that I would continue in my congressional office. Have a special person in my office who's a grant writer to help our school districts understand all the grants that are available for them and how they can apply for them to make it easier for them to get through all the bureaucratic red tape. Another thing that I think we really saw with COVID is the unequal access for students to continue to be educated. You know, I had 4 children at home, so we were lucky enough we had broadband, we had enough devices that if they had to log on, they could do that. But in other school districts, they didn't have access to broadband. So if they didn't have an iPad or a computer or Wi-Fi to get online, then they just had no school. We cannot allow that to happen. So again, I've been talking to people about making sure that there's universal Wi-Fi access in case we ever have a situation again, one, where kids can't go to school to learn and they have to learn online, but 2, also that's a huge important resource. As a parent of 4 children, I know so much of what you do now in school is done on a computer. Right. So I talked about working with some corporate partners to get them to give access to technology and to some of the Wi-Fi providers about giving that. And it's interesting because one of the issues that came up when I was talking to a Wi-Fi provider, he said to me, we want to give it to communities, but a lot of times we have families in the community who are afraid to come forward because they might be undocumented, and so they're afraid to come forward because they think they're going to be deported if they come forward. So then they're hiding and their kids won't get access to Wi-Fi. And he said, how do you think we could combat that? And I said, I talked about the school superintendent symposium as if you're communicating with the school superintendents and it can trickle down to the students that this is safe and we can find you a way to get access to this, I think that's a great, great resource and something that I will continue to do.
Okay, wonderful. Glad to hear that. And trickle down, we need to put that on steroids because trickle down is, but if you're saying you are willing to go out on a limb for the 4th Congressional District to be able to advocate and champion our causes. And I believe that's what I'm hearing you say.
Oh, that's what you're hearing. That's why I want to do this. I like helping people. I like solving problems. I loved my job in the town of Hempstead. I thought I was just going to be battling corruption and trying to lower taxes and eliminate waste. But when I got there, there was such an opportunity to really help people, and there was such a need. I loved it, and that's what I want to do in Congress.
Okay, well, we'll have our eyes on you, for sure. Beloved, anybody with a question? Let's not be shy. Anyone with a question? Okay, come to the microphone, beloved, please.
Good evening.
I am a resident of Hempstead, and in the village of Hempstead, I'm seeing a lot of mental illness and drug-addicted walkers, I should say. And I came from the Bronx originally, and my parents brought me here because they said Long Island was paradise. My dad said it was paradise. Well, I've seen our paradise declining over the last 42 years that I've been here. And also, we have a lot of traditional homes that kind of crept up in our area over the past, I would say, 15, 20 years. How would you be able to combat that for, I'm speaking for the Hempstead residents right now. Our children are growing up, and we have a plethora of different transitional homes where the men are coming out of jail and coming into the community.
Beloved, because we want to be
Okay.
able to move. So basically, your question is, transitional housing has just gone over the top in the village of
Yes.
Hempstead, and how will the Congress, if she's elected to Congress, how will you combat that?
Right.
Well, I would say I'd have to work with my partners at the local level, because that sounds like it's a lot of a zoning issue. So the zoning authority would probably be held by the village, or if it's outside the village area, it would be held by the town of Hempstead. So zoning is usually what you do to try to restrict certain uses of property to different areas, like you'll zone it for residential, you'll zone it for commercial use, mixed use, things like that. So that would be a local thing, but what I could do is work with my partners at that level. And then in terms of, I'm not sure if you're concerned about the safety concerns about that. Again,
Yes.
a lot of that would be at a local level, but you know, I collaborated with my partners at the state and the village level while I was Town of Hempstead supervisor. So if there was a specific need that I could address in terms of getting funding, maybe to support the community, that's something that I could do from the congressional level, but also to be an advocate for my residents on issues, even if they're not specifically a federal issue, to be an advocate and to build a bridge of communication with your officials on the local level who could have the more specific authority over that.
Okay.
Thank you so much for your question, beloved. Anybody, hold on, we've got a mic wipe. A mic wipe, I love it, all right. Yes, beloved.
Good evening, everyone. Ms. Gillian, I heard you, and I want to commend you for coming out. I think it's great that you came.
Thank you, I'm glad to be here.
So the first question I have is, do you agree that there is a border crisis? Do you agree that there is a border crisis?
Yes.
Good. And then, do you have any answers as to how we can reduce the national debt, or ideas?
Ideas, or do you have any ideas as to how to reduce the national debt?
Yeah, so that was something that I had my eye on in the town of Hempstead, finding ways to save money. When I got in, they gave out like millions of dollars of raises and promotions that weren't in the budget, so my budget was out of whack. right from the beginning. So I found ways to do that by rebidding contracts that were completely wasteful and bringing down the costs associated with those contracts by refinancing our debt to save millions of dollars. So that's the same kind of attitude I'm going to bring to Congress. I'm very conservative about spending plans without finding a way to pay for them. So for any particular spending plan, I will make sure that we find a way that there is a projected way to pay for whatever spending goes forward. So those are some of the kind of attitudes that I will bring to Congress.
Okay. And then,
Last one.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, last question, go ahead.
okay, so I'm going to kind of sum up your beliefs. I did understand you to say that you are a believer. Is that correct?
A believer?
Christian. You are a Christian.
I am.
All right, so do you believe in the sanctity of marriage? And if you do or don't, that is between a man and a woman. I understand you to say that you were pro.
Pro-life?
I'm pro-choice.
Pro-choice, yeah, because I'm pro-life. But anyway, so I'm
I should
wondering
say
how
I'm
you.
pro-woman, and I'm pro-woman having autonomy over their own medical decisions.
So I'm asking, as a believer, how do you reconcile, well, first you need to answer the question, do you believe in the sanctity of marriage between, it's a two-part question. So do you believe that do you believe in the
Do you believe in the sanctity of marriage?
sanctity of marriage
I believe in the sanctity of marriage.
between a man and a woman, I'm saying?
I believe in marriage equality.
Okay.
I believe the government doesn't need to get involved in bedroom issues.
So, and this is my last question, how do you reconcile those beliefs with what God says about both?
I believe that Jesus loves everybody, and I love Jesus, and I believe Jesus is very embracing of everybody. So I feel very comfortable with my beliefs and Jesus's beliefs. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your questions, beloved. Last one, Lady D, how are you?
Good. Hello, how are you?
Good evening.
If we send you to Congress and on the federal level, my concern, and when I speak with my children and my grandchildren who are coming of age to vote, their hopelessness is in the voter suppression that they're seeing, the redistricting that they're seeing, and that we are constantly fighting a battle that they keep changing the rules on us. And so when what is your stance on voter suppression and the redistricting that's going on? And what will you do on the federal level to help us? Because it's got to stop.
I agree with you. You know, ever since the Supreme Court gutted the Voting Rights Act of 1965, we've seen more and more states encroach upon voting access. We've seen this Georgia has come to the forefront. We've seen them encroach on voting rights, and we have seen that they're encroaching on rights of people of color in particular. And right now, in New York, today, the Republican Party filed a lawsuit to try to throw out the absentee ballots that went out a long time ago. They said, oh, COVID isn't a good excuse to have an absentee ballot. Well, you know, they could have said that in June when the primary ballots went out. They could have said it in August or July when my primary ballots went out, but they said it conveniently after all the absentee ballots have gone out. Well, most of them have gone out, and they're seeing who has more. I know in my district there are exponentially more absentee ballots requested by Democrats than the Republicans. So now they've gone to court to try to throw out all those ballots for people who in good faith requested an absentee ballot, didn't think there was any problem with it, put it out. It's been sent to them. Many people, thousands and thousands of people have already voted by absentee ballot, and now they're trying to disenfranchise them and say your ballot won't count, because if you vote by absentee ballot, they're going to just throw them away. Right. So this is a serious issue. When I'm in Congress, I will support the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. Absolutely, 100%. And I will also support the Presidential Election Reform Act, which is a bill that was put forward in the House, that every single Republican running for re-election in the House of Representatives voted against. And this is basic anti-coup legislation. It basically says if you don't like the result of an election, you can't use administrators and procedural rules to try to throw out the will of the people. Every single Republican running for re-election in the House of Representatives voted against it. I will vote for that.
Thank you.
Thank you for your question.
Thank you very much, Candidate Gillen. We gave you an extended period of time because we need our folk to understand and to be able to question for themselves. Now, I need you to understand that it has been recorded, that in the event you are elected, that we will be holding your feet to the fire, all right?
I understand that, and if you honor me with your vote, I will be accountable to you
Wonderful.
and accessible to you.
You're taking all the words right out of my mouth. Amazing, amazing. Beloved, we thank you for coming. Give us a 60-second wrap-up and give us a contact or where folk can contact your office, your campaign office, in case there are some additional questions that arise, or if people want to engage and have young people see how the process really works, then share with us that information before you go as part of your closing.
So I was at an event the other night, and a woman said her grandmother was a Holocaust survivor. And she said her grandmother would always say to her grandchildren, always be careful, because freedom doesn't disappear overnight. It gets taken away incrementally. And that's what we're seeing right now, where they're encroaching upon your right to vote, where they're encroaching upon a woman's right, making us second-class citizens, where they want military assault weapons out to the very people who tried to overthrow our government on January 6th. This is a consequential election, and you only get one shot at it. And if you don't come out and vote for people like me, you're not going to like the country you see in a couple of years. So I ask you for your vote. I will always honor the commitment I've made to you today to work hard for this community. And if you want to help on my campaign, you can go to my website, which is my name, lauragillen.com, and you can sign up there. Thank you so much. Thank you for being a great moderator as well.
Thank you, Candidate Gillens, and best of luck to you. Okay, beloved, let's hear Mr. S.D. Esposito's closing Thank you, Candidate Gillen. Good luck to you. God bless. Well, that was a nice discourse, don't you think? Absolutely. And the questions were wonderful. Wonderful. Now I expect some of our young people to engage also. I see young people in the house, right, Queen Mother Moore? So I expect some of our youngsters to engage also. Well, let's move right along. I see you were just engrossed because I couldn't get close. Let's move right along, beloveds. Bishop, let me add my thank you for opening up the doors of the cathedral for this candidates forum. Well, we're moving right on to New York State now. State representation. And who have we here? Good evening. Oh, another Democrat. Say it again? No Republican. How about that? So now, sir, I'm sure I know who you are. You're running for the New York State Senate, I think. Yes. You look like this gentleman named Kevin W. Thomas, Kevin M. Thomas. Yeah. Kevin Michael? No, Kevin Matthew. Oh, well, Matthew's a good one. He's in the Bible. We say good evening to you and welcome. Beloved, for those of you who do not know, Kevin Matthew Thomas is running in the 6th senatorial district for the state of New York. We are going to have him introduce himself to us. My first time, certainly, meeting. I've heard the name, but it's good to be able to put a face with it. So why don't you welcome, and why don't you give us your opening statement, please.
Thank you for having me. Good evening, congregation.
Good evening.
All right. Thank you to Bishop White. Thank you to Shelley. Thank you for inviting me here and putting all of this together. I'm State Senator Kevin Thomas, and I've been a state senator for the past 4 years. I live in Levittown with my wife and my 3-year-old daughter, and a little husky as well. I came here when I was 10 years old from a small little Middle Eastern place called Dubai, but my parents are from India. When I was elected in 2018, I became the first South Asian state senator here in New York. Before getting into politics, I was a legal services attorney in the South Bronx, where I defended individuals when they came to court, when they get sued over private student loans, credit card debt, auto loans. I was later appointed by the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights to the New York State Advisory Committee, where we did a lot of work on civil rights issues here in the state of New York. And then I decided to jump into politics. Believe me, I never thought I was going to actually get into politics. You can ask my wife. She wouldn't have married me. And here I am as a state senator, the chair of the Consumer Protection Committee. Since 2019, when we got into the majority, the Democrats, we've been able to do a lot of great work here in New York. One, codifying Roe v. Wade, making sure women had the right to choose over what they do with their bodies. Two, making sure that we bring lots of money back to Long Island for our schools. We were able to start universal pre-K here on Long Island, something the city always had and Long Island didn't. We were able to put money into our infrastructure, our water infrastructure, made sure that there was money to clean up the Bethpage plume. We also did a lot of work on making sure we passed common sense gun legislation. After the Buffalo shooting, it was my bill that raised the age here in New York from 18 to 21 in order to purchase a semi-automatic. I still think it's too low of an age to still get a semi-automatic. We did a lot of work during COVID as well. When the entire state shut down, my office was open. We were making sure that people did not go hungry, that when they lost their jobs, that the Department of Labor was sending over unemployment checks. We were even supplying hospitals like Nassau University Medical Center with PPEs. We did a lot of work to make sure people had enough to survive. And as we come out of COVID, we are trying to bring back the economy, making sure our small businesses have what it takes. We're pumping in grants to all of them so that they can start hiring again and make sure the community thrives once again. I got into all of this to improve the quality of life of residents, and I'm going to continue to do so in my next term in office. My current district is mid-Nassau County, so because of the redistricting, it has changed completely going southward. So now I have Westbury, Garden City, the village of Hempstead, Uniondale, Freeport, Roosevelt, parts of Oceanside, Baldwin, Lakeview, West Hempstead. So it's 350,000 people that I'll be representing, and looking forward to take some questions right now.
Well, that was extensive. So this redistricting, which I am even still a little about, has it empowered communities of color, or has it diluted communities of color, our power, voting power,
I
access?
think it has divided the community versus anything else. the whole process was completely undemocratic. You have someone from out of state drawing the lines without talking to anyone. He can't even be held accountable for the data he used to draw the map. The current district that I have right now is the majority-minority district. He drew it in such a way without looking at other communities. It was redrawn 3 times. So I believe he was just trying to make the districts competitive. That's why we have the type of races that we have this time around in Congress. He was trying to make it competitive versus giving more people a better opportunity to pick a representative.
So let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Is there going to be a battle about this redistricting as it stands now? Is there a court battle or something going on with these lines?
For the Senate, no. For the Assembly, the court allowed for the lines to stand for now, but next year they're going to redraw the lines for the Assembly districts.
So you have a majority melanated district. So in other words, you have a large concentration of people of color
Yes,
in your district.
yes.
You've served in the New York State Senate now for
4 years.
4
2
years,
terms.
that's 2 terms.
Yes.
So you got reelected.
Yes.
Why in the world, with these lines being drawn like this, would you want to continue in the New York State Senate?
Because we still have work to do. We still need someone out there who will put the people first and special interests last.
And will you do that?
Yes,
It's a good soundbite, but will you do that?
yes,
Give
absolutely.
me an example, share an example with us of an instance or a couple of instances where, as a New York State Senator, you have been able to deliver for your constituents.
So we've been able to do a lot in the last 4 years. I just sampled a few here and there that has actually, you know, a big impact on people's lives. During the summer months, for example, everyone drives, gas prices were through the roof. We made sure that the gas tax was cut here in New York because we knew to put the people first and not oil companies that make a lot of money on us. So we cut the tax there, which was a hit to the New York State Treasury, but we made sure that people had relief. What else did we do that put people first? During COVID, when the government shut down everything and people lost their jobs, we put a moratorium on foreclosures and evictions. We had to stand up to the incredibly powerful real estate lobby and to the banks who were not receiving their monthly mortgage payments from the owners of the homes. We've stepped up when they've threatened us over and over and over again. Because we're doing this for the people and not for the corporations. This is just a few of the things that we've been able to do in just the past 2 years. We've done a lot more, but I would be standing up here for hours on end trying to tell you, oh, see, we shifted this from this to that, and we were able to help a lot more people. And this is what we do in the New York State budget every single year.
Okay, how large is our state budget, Senator Thomas?
This year's budget was $210 billion.
More than some countries.
Yeah, I think Elon Musk is worth about that much.
Well, if he's not dumping any in our community, I'm
No.
not. So let's cut to the chase here. Your opposition is James Cole?
Yes.
Mr. Cole? Oh, gosh, he's not here either. Okay, but you are. Talk about inflation, because I hear your passion as you talk in terms of representing the people
Yeah.
as opposed to the corporations, you'd rather represent community. So we know inflation, these numbers are being driven by just unadulterated greed.
It is a very scary situation that we're going to be going into in the next couple of months. I don't want to say too much as to what's going to happen, but people are going to lose a lot of jobs because of layoffs, and the price of everything is just skyrocketing. Up in the state Senate, we have a lot of bills that deal with not letting people price gouge during this time, because, you know, even a gallon of milk is a bit expensive for those who live paycheck to paycheck. And trust me, my parents live paycheck to paycheck, and if they saw the prices right now, they would not have made it. We need to make sure that prices don't go out of hand here. We're going to have a lot of checks. I know AG Tish James and my office has worked together on price gouging, especially during COVID, and we are monitoring what people are doing and businesses and take action against them if they are violating the law.
So if reelected, thank you for that.
Yeah.
If reelected, what are your top 3 priorities as a New York State Senator?
So my top 3 all depends on how the economy is going to go forward in the next couple of months. But it is, 1, to make sure that our school funding stays the same or higher. I do not want to cut any of our foundation aid that we've been able to achieve so far. 2nd, to make sure our safety net hospitals like Nassau University Medical Center has the money to stay afloat. What I've seen in COVID, during COVID, is your health care is tied to your job. And if you lose your job, you no longer have health care. And Nassau University Medical Center serves the poorest in our communities. It is literally a single payer hospital, Medicaid and Medicare. They do not have a commercial medical specialty there. So prop them up, make sure our schools have what it takes, and to make sure that inflation does not go out of hand here in New York State. So what does that mean? We need to make sure that we continue the gas tax moratorium, that we reinstitute a moratorium on shutoffs for utilities, because in the next couple of months, because of the rise in natural gas prices, utility bills are going to skyrocket. People are going to have a difficult time paying those bills, so we need to make sure there's a moratorium on those shutoffs. So I'm thinking in terms of a consumer advocate, and as the chair of the Consumer Protection Committee, just want to make sure people are protected and kept as safe in their middle class community as possible.
Sounds like you got a handle on your job. Because inflation sometimes, it's hard to wrap your mind around, and your consumer protection. But when we talk about what is driving inflation nationally, locally, or statewide, we do have to look at some bad calls, yes?
Yes.
Don't we have to look at greed?
Yes, greed is one of them, because
Greed.
Corporations have a lot of money that they're sitting on right now that they're not spending. Banks are going to be doing the same thing because they're not going to give credit to people during this time as much as they would otherwise.
So what would you propose? What new program or what would you put on the table to help alleviate that in the 6th senatorial district?
Well, when I introduce a piece of legislation, it affects the entire state. So usually when I introduce something, the entire industry that's here in New York kind of quivers, saying, oh no, what did he just put out there? So it's going back to what I said initially, what does the state have control over? There's a lot here that the federal government has control over in terms of holding some corporations accountable. We can do the same here in terms of price gouging. We can do the same in terms of putting a moratorium on the gas tax, putting a moratorium on shutoffs, and just going forward and making sure that people are not too negatively affected by what is to come.
Are you pro-choice, pro-life, or pro-woman?
Pro-woman, pro-choice.
Very good. Do we have some questions for the state senator? Beloveds, here's the microphone. We're going to ask for one question and for it to be a question, okay? Not a series. Come on, beloved.
All right, so, this is not theory, and I want to congratulate you as well for coming in to face us, if you will. Good evening to you. One of the reasons I was like to come in. So I'm going to ask the two-part questions as opposed to, since I only get one. So do you believe in the sanctity of marriage between a man and a woman?
Yes, and also love is love.
Yeah, like Jesus loves everybody, even the one in the womb, okay? So how do you reconcile pro-choice and the sanctity of marriage with the Word of God, which he says, I've known you from your mother's womb, and that marriage between, let me ask my question, please. Thank you. Thank you so much. All right. So he says that marriage outside of that is an abomination to him. So how do you personally reconcile the two with your Christian beliefs?
So I am Christian, and I've read the Bible, and Jesus has often said to love thy neighbor, and cast the first stone if you're not a sinner. So I go by what Jesus says, and I love my neighbor, and I'm not going to cast the first stone.
I'm not asking you to make judgment. I'm not asking him to make judgment on, I'm asking him.
That was his answer, and so we can't say that we don't want to accept his answer. Thank you so much for this question, though. Good evening.
Good evening, and thank you for being here, Senator Thomas.
Thank you.
So I have two questions.
Yes.
One is from me, and one is from someone who's not here right
Okay.
now. You mentioned if you do not have a job, you may not have access to health care.
Yes.
And, I hear every candidate talk about crime and immigration, and those are important issues, but, health affects all of us. And I am concerned because in this nation, it seems to me that health would be something that more of us would have access to. So what, if anything, do you propose for people who may not be employed? And I even see a gap for the elderly. You have to be destitute, or you have to be extremely wealthy to get decent health care. And so I'm curious to know what, if anything, is being done about that, because as so many other things in this nature, it seems like health care has also been commodified. And, you can decide where you want to live. You can live with a $2,000 apartment or a $7,000 apartment, but you can't always choose what's going to happen in your body. So that's something that's of concern for me. And I also have another question from someone.
Sis, let him answer that one.
Okay.
So I am a co-sponsor of the New York Health Act here in New York, which allows for health care for all. And listen, healthcare is a very complicated subject. given how much commercial medicine is out there and the reimbursement rates. So that's why it's not accessible as much as we want it to be and affordable because of what is happening all around us. But in the state budget every single year, we've been able to vote for increases in programs, increases to programs that help seniors, to help those who are unemployed, to make sure that they have access to health care, even to those who are undocumented. So we're doing a lot here in New York. And again, if I stood here and just went through everything that we do in the budget, it'll take us hours and hours.
And my last question, I'll make this brief, but I think the commodification of the weapons industry is also something that we have been wrestling with as a nation. You know, you think about the fact that we have this military complex and then we try and figure out how do we deal with crime on the street. So the other question from someone who's not able to be here in person is why can't we just ban assault weapons altogether, you know?
So that is a really good question and something a federal representative would be able to answer better than someone who is just a state senator. But we've done so much here in New York already. We have the strictest gun legislation, the strictest gun laws, but we still see guns coming from other parts of the country up here. We need a national answer for this, and that's why we need to put people like Laura Gillen in office who can vote on matters like this and make sure that everyone is protected. Because no one should have, an AR-15. They're not good for hunting, and they're not good for everything else that they use it for. So,
Thank you.
so much. We
Thank you.
appreciate that. We understand more candidates have joined us. But listen, this question I've got to ask you, it came in online, and it's really one of the rich ones. Is rich in terms of the depth of the question. Is Freeport being rezoned, and what does it mean for Freeport taxpayers?
that would be a question for the village of Freeport. I don't think it's being rezoned.
Rezone, the school district are we talking about?
I believe the question came online that was speaking about the redefinition of the lines for this county. We're trying to get clarity concerning.
Oh, I wouldn't be able to answer that. It's probably a little bit more local. So like a county legislator or
Okay, so
yeah.
the redistricting that's going on and has gone on to draw the lines where you now have a district that is has a significant population of color.
Yeah.
Who draws those lines?
That one was drawn by a map maker, which the court had hired. So the redistricting that Nassau County is going through right now, that is strictly the county legislature.
County legislature.
Yeah, it's a bit different from what we went through.
Okay,
Yeah.
but you are open to working with the different levels of government
Yes.
to be able to?
Yes.
Wonderful, wonderful. Tell folk in 30 seconds why they should vote for you, please.
I think there's
Oh,
someone
I'm
behind.
sorry.
Hi,
Hi.
I'm currently a senior in Freeport High School.
Speak up, beloved.
I've been a student athlete for years, and I've used Cleveland Park. Right now, Freeport is going through an environmental injustice. So my question to you is, how important is preserving green space and ensuring our communities are not displaced with the term economic development?
I didn't hear.
In other words, how will you ensure, or what will you do to ensure environmental justice, creating green spaces?
Yeah, how would you preserve green space?
Preserving green spaces and making sure that economic renewal or development.
Or how do you
is not-
feel about economic development when the term is brought up?
So, economic development is not a bad thing, all right? I have seen a lot of communities needing that extra boost for their economy, for building affordable housing, to make sure the quality of life is better for them. But at the same time, you got to weigh it with the community interests. Are they going too far? Are they displacing people from that area? So everything has to be taken in before making a decision on such economic development issues. The state hardly gets involved in something like that. It's usually the very local villages that do that, or the town. So, you know, I can work with the communities to try and get some balance in making sure that economic development does not infringe on the community.
And preserving green space
Yes.
is something that you would.
Yes.
What year are you, beloved? You're a senior. Very good. Thank you so much for the question. No, we're finished with Representative Thomas now. Oh. Okay, come on, beloved. A quick one. Since you're the first man to hit the mic.
I appreciate that. Don't mean to disappoint folks, but I'm very passionate about where I live, and you're coming into our district now. So you currently live in Levittown,
Yes.
and Levittown is part of the 9th Senatorial District.
No, it's not. It got cut out.
It got cut out.
Yeah.
Okay. So you will continue to live in Levittown if you win and still represent this area.
So we are looking, as in me and my wife, are looking for a new house to move into. But under the New York Constitution right now, in a redistricting year, I'm allowed to run in this district as long as I live in the county. But for the 2024 election, I will have to have moved.
Okay. And here's my question.
Yeah.
At the state level, we've had issues with our Senator Brooks, who I call Benedict Arnold Brooks because he's never told the truth about the Armory, and Taylor Darling. And you supported 2 of their bills to deal with the Armory and also Cleveland Field. How am I supposed to trust your judgment now when you've supported these 2 individuals who failed to meet with us and talk to us about what was going on, but behind our backs put those bills up there so everybody could vote on, and we called you guys. We called your office. Don't support that bill. But you did. How am I to interpret that?
So it's unfortunate what's going on in Freeport with the situation with the Armory and with the school district and the fields. I had to defer to the sponsors of the bill, which was Senator Brooks and Assemblywoman Darling, when it came to this matter. They believed that it was the best for their constituents to push that bill forward while there was litigation pending, and I took their word for it. I have been meeting with the school board member and as well as the superintendent on a number of these issues. I'm also speaking to the village. Again, I work for the people, not for the mayor or anyone else, but these kind of votes were put in front of us in a very expeditious manner where you could not hold a hearing or you could not go and talk to the community before voting on it. So it was put in front of us right before session ended, about maybe a day before session ended in June, and we couldn't get all the facts in front of us before a vote was taken. And everyone voted in favor of it because we trust the senator or the representative from that area to put up a bill that will help the community. So now that redistricting has occurred and Freeport is part of my new district, I'm looking forward to working with everyone and making sure that, we do what's best. And I know the Attorney General has already filed a suit, and the governor hasn't even signed the bill.
I just want to say to you, thank you. We've gotten more from you than those two who represent us. What does that say about them? Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm here for everyone.
And thank you for that question and bringing that to our attention. So we're going to have you on a microscope too. Okay. Give us 30 seconds as to why we need to support you going into this election cycle, since you now have been assigned our communities.
I am so honored to even have an opportunity like this. And thank you for inviting me here so that the community hears from me as well. As I stated in the very beginning, I decided to run for office so that I can improve the quality of life of residents, and I will continue to do so in pushing forward with bills, pushing forward with policy, to make sure that we have everything it takes to sorry, that's fine. I just want to make sure that we have all the resources here to improve the quality of life of our residents. So I would be honored if you vote for me in this upcoming election, and looking forward to serving everyone for the next 2 years.
Yes, indeed, and thank you so much for being here. And let me share with you too, as I did with candidate Gillen, it's being recorded, it's being taped, and certainly do not think for 1 minute that we're going to let you in and let you get away. If anything,
Absolutely.
we've learned our lesson, so we're going to be active. I need for you, Senator, I'm sorry, you're already seated. I need for you to, school board, who are you? School board member, president, what? President. Okay, well, you're going to go talk to him right now to the side, okay, to have a discourse, because we have to keep moving right now. But that's the one whose ear you want.
We've spoken. She has my number.
She has it? Oh, he knows who you are.
I've spoken to him as a community member, yes,
Yeah.
and I believe you're still waiting to speak to the superintendent, so I just wanted to make that clear.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Conversations haven't happened, and not everyone voted against it. Actually, Assemblywoman Judy Griffin voted. I'm sorry, not everyone voted in favor. Assemblywoman Judy Griffin did vote against that bill. So just wanted to make some things clear, because we are in church.
Okay, thank you so much.
No,
In other words,
I
you're
meant from
saying-
my conference.
In other words, you're saying that he voted the wrong way. That's what you're saying. That happens. Listen, it happens, no question. That doesn't make it right, but at least you are in a position to redeem yourself.
Absolutely.
Wonderful. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
joining us, Senator. Beloved, we're going to take a 60-second break, and then we are going to, while you, yes, bring the next candidate up, sister. And how many more do we have, Sister Shelley? How many more? How many more? Inning stretch. Everybody just stretch it out. We're going to keep it moving so that we can get everybody in. Thank you for that, beloveds. Thank you for that. We've had a robust conversation so far, and we're going to keep it moving. We have a few more. Yeah, start now. Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. We're back, beloveds, and we have our next candidate who is up and who has joined us. The first one on the right side. Because that side, that side of the what? The left? Democrats. And over here? So I guess we're running all over the place, huh? And we need to understand that we should never be beholden to party. Because I don't see a Democrat. But we do have a gentleman up here who is running in the 18th Assembly District. Is that right? And his name is Lamont E. Johnson, and you're in District 18 in the Assembly, and you are running in here because you want our vote. So let's say good evening to you, Mr. Johnson.
It's my turn. Good evening.
Good evening and welcome to this forum. We're going to allow you to introduce yourself to all of our attendees and all those thousands that are watching us online.
Good evening. I want to thank Bishop White for allowing this to take place in this beautiful house of worship. I want to thank you, Dr. Soretta McKnight. I want to thank Shelley Brazley for personally inviting me. This is a very important election, and I want everyone to know that my name is Lamont E. Johnson. I'm a 50-year resident of the village of Hempstead, so that also means that I'm a 50-year resident of Nassau County. I'm a former New York City police officer, former Hempstead police officer. I retired from Hempstead Police Department. In 2013, I was elected to the Hempstead School Board for the very first time. At that time, we had one of the lowest graduation rates in New York, and perhaps one of the lowest graduation rates in all of the United States. I'm happy to say that in 2021, the Hempstead School District was recognized as the most improved school district in all of New York State. And that came from the Department of Education. That's not from me, that's the Department of Education designated us as the most improved school district in all of New York State. In my district, you have Roosevelt School District, a school district that was under receivership for over 10 years. There's some dispute of how well that went. Roosevelt is doing better. And one of the reasons why they're doing better is that the former assembly person, Earlene Hooper, was able to give them totally new buildings. I think Roosevelt School District has been pretty much ignored in the last few years. I also want to say, I heard the senator say earlier, he spoke about foundation aid, but I want to give credit where it's due. That credit should be given to Robert Chiriano, the president of Westbury School District, who started a class action lawsuit to ensure that students in Hempstead School District and other school districts were giving the funds that they were entitled to. So I want to make that clear. Hempstead, New York, we have a serious crime problem. We have young people being shot. And even in Freeport, you had 4 young people that were shot the other day. I hear people speak about rights of Roe v. Wade and things of that nature. I understand that. But we have to protect our children that are here. We have to protect our residents that are here now. And I'm a person that's very well qualified in protecting people, and I believe education is the key to all our success, and I will make sure that the necessary monies are given to the school districts in this district. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. First question. You talk about education and you talk in terms of having served Hempstead, and congratulations on Hempstead being most improved with respect to school districts. So now what about the rest of the 18th? The 18th, does it comprise all of Roosevelt or just a portion of Roosevelt? And if in fact that is the case, are you pro-empowering the rest of the village as opposed to the vote being diluted? Does it include all of Roosevelt?
It doesn't include all of Roosevelt. It includes a majority of Roosevelt. I feel that Roosevelt, Freeport, you're dealing with a elitist attitude that the small people, the people that don't have as much funds, are being ignored, both in Freeport and in Roosevelt. I would fight in Albany. I would send the necessary funds downstate while I'm upstate. to the people that deserve it. One of the things that you hear about is the Cleveland Avenue Park. That's a park that many young people have said that they played football, soccer, and other sports for years, and that's something that the village trustees agreed to sell it for $49 million. We always complain about children not having a place to go or a safe haven or a place to go. You have a place and you're taking that away from the children, and you really don't care what the residents say. Many people are not happy with it. Members of the school board in Freeport are not happy with it, and most importantly, the residents are not happy with it. But Taylor Darling and Senator Brooks, they passed a proposal to sell the Cleveland Park or let that park be used for a warehouse. And I think that's very wrong. I would fight for what the people want. I'm not fighting for big corporations. I'm not fighting for the people that feel like they're elite. I'm fighting for the small people that need their voice heard in Albany. I will be here. I'm a person that's always been helpful. I've done many things to help people when they're in need, whether it be feeding people, whether it be providing clothes and toys for Christmas. But I do things, and I always don't broadcast it because I don't want to get too biblical, but it's things that suggest when you do something, you don't have to try to embarrass people or put it out there that I'm doing this and I'm doing that. But people that know me, they know that I will fight for what we call the little man. I'm not beholden to anyone. I'm not beholden to any party. You know, people speak about the left and people speak about the right. I'll speak about doing what's right for the people. That's what I'm here for. I'm here to fight for you. We hear the Assemblywoman speaking about excellence in the 18th Assembly District. It's good to say excellence is a good motto or a good slogan, but we all know that things are not excellent. The unemployment rate is not excellent. The crime rate is not excellent. The condition of your roads is not excellent. Senior citizens having to pay the school taxes when they no longer have any students in schools, that's not excellent. So that's one of the things that I would fight for. I pay $8,000 in school taxes alone for only one home, one of my homes, $8,000. And I know senior citizens cannot afford to pay that amount on the fixed income. So when I get to Albany, I will fight to ensure that there's some type of tax breaks for senior citizens. That would be one of my first things that I would do. Thank you.
Thank you. And what are the second two? In other words, for your top three, you named that one as a major one with our seniors. Give me the other two.
The top three, we have to change the culture and the mindset of not only the people that don't vote, but the people that do vote. This row A all the way mentality is hurting our communities. People only come around and make believe they like you or they love you when it's election time. I'm here to say that I've been around for people year round, night and day, every day. I don't have to try to make believe that I like you, I love you, because I do. And my history of what I have done, my works show that I have great care for the people in the entire district. My record speaks for itself. As far as things that need to be done, we have to fight this high employment rate. We have to fight crime. We have to continue to make education a priority. Places like Freeport are doing pretty well. Roosevelt and Hempstead, we need to continue to improve. I would like to see Malvern School District, many of the students in Lakeview, they go to the Malvern School District. I would like to see more black and brown teachers so the students could see people that look like them. The school is doing well, but I want to see more black and brown teachers in their school districts.
Do you think that a noose is a necklace?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I think that's something that brings us back to the days of slavery when our people were hanged, many for no reason, most of the time for no reason. I think that was like an intimidation thing that was done. I'm happy that members of the clergy and Roosevelt, a few people spoke up against that and made it a national issue to let people know that racism still does exist, but we're not going to just stand around and allow it to happen being unchecked. So I believe you may be one of the other persons that spoke in regards to it. I know Bishop Mackey was very vocal about the noose incident.
And it's back to haunt us again. Beloveds, who has questions for candidate Johnson, Lamont E. Johnson, who's been here over 50 years, that says something about stability? And I'm going to ask for it to be a question. Thank you so much. Go ahead, beloved.
To move this.
Good evening. If elected, you will represent two of the largest villages in the state of New York, where minority populations are the majority. These communities face issues ranging from gun violence to lack of affordable housing. How will you support your constituents in those villages?
That's a great question, and like you said, it's two of the largest villages happen to be in the district, Freeport and Hempstead. One of the things I would do is make people understand that Hempstead and Freeport is not just a cash cow for the Democratic Party or a place where people could take advantage of the people, take advantage of the vote, and it makes other people powerful. It doesn't necessarily make the people in Hempstead powerful or the people in Freeport powerful. The housing situation in Hempstead is very serious. There is no what I call affordable homes in Hempstead. There's no affordable housing in Hempstead. There's really no affordable housing in Freeport. And what happens is Hempstead and Freeport are two places that Hempstead has become a dumping ground for programs that supposedly help people like homeless shelters and things of that nature. And we need to let people know that we want to bring positive things to Hempstead. It's not a dumping ground. We have to find ways to stop the crime, stop our young people from being murdered. I don't think people say enough about that. You see people get on TV and they cry about conditions of school districts, but when you see a young person that's murdered in the street, you don't see the outcry because people want to make believe that things are going well, but they're not going well. One homicide is too much. One shot's fired is too much. And as far as the homes, I want the apartment owners to start treating the residents better. It shouldn't be litter and people urinating in the hallways and drug addicts. That's a big problem in Hempstead.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Yes.
I think. My name is Emily Moore, and I'm from Roosevelt. And I grew up in Freeport, and I live in Roosevelt. I'm 80 years old. How are we going to win? We, as citizens of the United States, we pay federal, state, and local taxes, whether Republican or Democrat. We want to, what is the plan that the elected officials are going to do in order to make sure our vote count? You want us to get out and vote, but who's going to stop them from throwing them in the garbage? Who's going to stop what's the plan for how we're going to protect that vote that we're going to be marching in and trying to get the vote? What's the plan with you elected officials on how we're going to protect the vote? How are we going to win?
I didn't hear the last part before you said protecting the vote. I didn't hear the last part of what you were saying. Of your question.
What is your plan to secure our votes to ensure that when they are cast, that they will be counted?
Okay, voting is very, very important. I've been voting since I've been 18 years old in every election. My record shows that I vote in every election. Every election is important to me. I think that there has been some improvement in New York voting, the voting in New York, the early voting and things of that nature that give people more opportunities to vote. I think they should add even more days to that. I think that in New York, we have to ensure that absentee ballots is something that has to be included also. I'm for absentee ballots. Years ago, as a school board member, I was accused of using too many absentee ballots to become elected. So I well know that absentee ballots, you can't have it both ways. You can't say that is bad. You know, when you lose, absentee ballots are bad, and then, you know, say they're good when you win. So I'm for the right for people to vote. I'm against voter suppression. I think we should encourage as many people as possible to vote. And I encourage everybody to vote. Vote for somebody. If you don't vote for me, vote for someone else. I encourage everyone to vote. And I think we have great laws in place in New York State to ensure that everybody has the right to vote.
Thank you for that.
The question is too, people say we have to come out, people have to come out. And I'm in education, I've been in education for years. I'm on the school board in Roosevelt. That's not the point. The point is how are we going to train these young people and these people who are very fearful of this system. We the activists. We people who put our lives on the line. We speak up and everything like that. But how are we going to get the masses of our people and our children to understand to walk with dignity for change and progress? In this, not only in Long Island, I'm talking about the United States of America. We the microcosm of the world right here.
Thank you, sister. Thank you, Sister Moore.
Okay, can I answer that question?
Yes, absolutely. Please.
Okay, it's good to see that we have people here that's always around children. You're a school board member. Soretta McKnight's a former school board member, so we have other school board members here. We have Shelley Brazy, who's a former school board member. We have people here in this audience that I think it's our duty to encourage young people to vote. And places like this is having this forum that lets everyone know that voting is important. So I think the message is getting out there. People know that voting is important. Thank you.
Thank you. Last one over here.
Okay, thank you, Sister Minister. Let me first start off apologizing, not acknowledging the shepherd of this amazing worship house, Bishop White. Thank you for having this. Thank you for allowing us to come here. And my comment is this. Assemblywoman Taylor and Brooks have done nothing for us. I'm sorry. My question is this. Lamont, what are you going to do that's different from her? And I'm talking about my assembly person. And Assemblyman Griffin, you were also participating with the mayor, when it came to the Armory and also Cleveland Field. And this is the first time I've seen you over here.
Okay, hold on.
So that's a little interesting.
Hold on, beloved.
But Brother Lamont, what are you going to do different?
What is going to be the difference?
Yeah, what's going to be the difference? Because she's done nothing.
That's very simple. I will be representing you, not representing the party, and not doing what the village of Freeport wants me to do, what the village of Hempstead wants me to do. I will be doing what the people want me to do. I will be fighting for you in Albany. That will be the difference. I won't make believe or have some slogan and saying that excellence in the 18th when we all agree that there's much improvement needed, and that's saying that it's excellent doesn't make it so. So that's the big difference, that Lamont Johnson will fight for you. I hear people speaking about only Democrats being here. I'm here. I'm running on the Republican ticket. I've been to 4 different forums this week, and every time, I was the only person that was not non-Democratic up here. So I'm here to fight for you. And I want people to understand that even in my own church, a person said to me that if you're not on a Democratic line, I'm not even going to look for your name. So I'm in church. I go to church every week. I've been a great son to my mother and my father. I've done everything possible to be a good citizen, to do the right things for people. But it's almost like I'm being discriminated against because I'm not running on the Democratic line. Well, I will fight for you. That's the thing. I'm not going to be led by a person, Jay Jacobs, I'm going to say the name very clear, Jay Jacob, a person that has absolutely no respect for African-American women. He has no respect for Senior Councilman Dorothy Goolsbee, the Deputy County Supervisor. He has no respect for her. He has no respect for Anissa Moore from Long Beach. He had no respect for a person in Buffalo. I forgot the young lady's name. He had no respect and compared her to Donald Trump. And he really didn't have any respect for Laura Gillen, who he said she had a dream to be she has a dream to be to her next seat. He said that's her dream, it's not his, and he wanted Corbett to be the person. So I'm not led by these people. I'm led by my will to do what's right for the people. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us, because you encapsulated certainly your closing statement and remark, but just for...
Young lady has a question.
No, we've got to keep moving. That's it. Yes, ma'am, I got a sense of you. We on the clock. Thank you so much for joining, and just for the record, if there is an empty podium like there is now, so I'm going to ask Ms. Darling to answer, oops, she's not there. We've been very fair in terms of Democrat, Republican, and setting the stage that it is up to voting our interests, not one party versus another. So I just want to go on the record with that. But thank you, Mr. Johnson. Good luck to you.
I didn't, you didn't afford me the opportunity for my closing.
You just closed.
I was answering the question. I didn't close.
Because you encompassed everything. But give us 30 seconds.
Oh, 30 seconds.
That's what it is.
If you vote row A all the way, you will not be voting for me because I'm on row B. I would appreciate your support. I humbly ask for your support. Some people may think that I'm crazy, but I think I'm courageous enough to stand here and ask for your vote. And I'm expecting many of you to change your ways and change the status quo. I know many of you, I could see it in your eyes that you say, you know what, Lamont E. Johnson, he deserves a chance. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you. Vote for me, row B. Is that what you're saying, Mr. Johnson? We got you. Thank you.
Very much.
Okay. Thank you. Next up, beloved, because we're going to keep this train moving. Next up, Sister Shelley Masheshna. Who do we have next up, beloved? Is this Judy Griffin, Assembly District 21? Wonderful, and she's going to be followed by Michael C. Salages in District 22. Welcome, beloved. Glad to see you. Glad you could make it.
Thank you very much.
Tell us, if you would, what does, you're in Assembly District 21, which encompasses what areas?
Excuse me. Well, first I'd like to say thank you to Shelley Brasley, Mesh Little, Lydia Bonner, Bishop Frank White, Sister Min Soretta McKnight, and I don't know if I got all the names right, for inviting me to Candidates Night. This is the first time I was ever invited to Zion for Candidates Night, so I'm happy to be here. And I represent a very diverse district. I start in the eastern end of Valley Stream in the New Lines, and go to Lynbrook, Malvern, East Rockaway, Rockville Center, South Hempstead, Baldwin, half of Freeport, parts of Valley Stream, which I already mentioned, Oceanside, a little portion of Hempstead, like a couple of blocks, a strip of West Hempstead, and Hewlett. And I just thought I might as well start with some of the questions that came up. First of all, I'm sorry that the constituent left, who I don't think he understood that Cleveland Park, although Cleveland Park isn't in my district, I voted no on that bill. And I went to leadership in the New York State Assembly and explained to them I represent half of Freeport. I heard from constituents that were from the part of Freeport that I represent. I heard from school board members and school families, all of which were my constituents. So I went to Assembly leadership in an effort to get that bill not to come to the floor.
Okay, hold on one second, beloved. And I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Now, tell us, this is my first time meeting you, so tell us who you are.
Yes, I just wanted to address that because that person had gotten it wrong.
Okay.
So, so I won in 2018. AD 21 is unlike some other districts where it's very GOP controlled. I won in 2018, and I was the first Democrat elected since 1974. A lot of you in this room weren't even born when that was last represented by a Democrat. I'm the first woman ever to represent AD 21. And because I represent such a district, not only do I crawl through glass during the campaign, but I literally crawl through glass every day, because despite how much I deliver for AD 21, I still have the GOP ready to trample on me. And they always want that seat back because they covet it like it's some treasure chest or something. So I work hard every day. I work hard to be engaged with all of my constituents, to be fair to all my constituents, and to listen to my constituents. I'm in touch with all of the school boards, and I have about 10 school districts I represent in AD 21. I know the school board, I know the superintendents. Most of them have my cell number, and they can call me any time of day or night, and I'm ready to listen and help where I can.
So let me understand, you're a sitting Assemblywoman.
Yes, I am serving my second term.
Okay.
So I won in 18, so I served my first term, and then I got reelected in 2020, and now I'm running for reelection in my third term. And because of the redistricted lines, I actually have gotten a little more of North Freeport. My district, 8021, mainly was South Freeport. And I got a little more of Freeport that goes to Baldwin schools. And tonight, because I'm someone that does the work, I canvass from one end of the district to the other. So tonight I had the pleasure of going before this event. I had the pleasure of knocking doors with some new homes that are now in 8021. And I got a really welcoming, people were really excited because you know what they said? This is the first time anyone ever came to our door. So I'm the type of legislator that does the work and keeps people engaged because I really want to represent them. And when a woman asked before, like, how do we get people to vote? Well, we get people to vote by voting for people that work hard to represent you and give you a reason to go to the polls and vote for us.
Wonderful. Thank you very kindly for that. You covered a plethora
Yes.
of the information we've been discussing tonight. So I can really get that snapshot by asking you, what are your top 3 priorities when you return, if you're returned back to Albany for another term?
Excuse me. Always a major priority is our education funding, to fund our local schools, our school districts on Long Island, and of course in 8021, to increase our funding to universal pre-K, because that's crucial for so many young families to have their children be able to go to pre-K in the public school system without having to spend all that money for outside educational services. That's really important. I passed a bill this year that also extends the special ed screenings for young children. If you don't catch learning disabilities and other issues when children are 1, 2, or 3, sometimes you cannot remediate it. And if you can do it earlier, you'll get students who can graduate successfully and go on to good careers, good paying jobs, good careers, either in labor workforce, nursing, or whatever it may be. So that's extremely important to me, and as well is funding our libraries. Libraries are a cornerstone of every community, and each year I make sure to give all the school districts, I give them all funding for special projects. I also give the libraries funding for special projects. So that's really important. Dealing with our mental health crisis, because I believe it is a crisis. Our mental health crisis and the opioid epidemic, and not enough services are there for families of those who are addicted, and there's not enough services for those recovering. So one thing I was very proud to do this summer, I was able to give $450,000 to Baldwin School District to build mental health and wellness facility in their middle school and at Schubert Elementary School. So that to me was a real step in the right direction. Freeport already has a mental health facility in their district. And for the opioid epidemic, there's a lot we have to do, a real multi-pronged approach. But one thing I was happy to do this year was I was able to give Family and Children's Association, who helps with addiction, recovery, mental health services, I was able to give them $200,000. Also, we have the South Shore Guidance Center right here in Freeport, and I was able to give them funding as well that would help them administer services to those that need them.
Thank you so much. Questions for the Assemblywoman? Questions for the Assemblywoman? And she made the clarification, Assemblywoman made the clarification that she voted against the move that was put forward by Assemblywoman Darling and Senator Brooks. Yes, beloved.
Yes, Assemblywoman, thank you for coming this evening. And I was not aware that you voted no. And I am so glad to hear that you did. But you should have made more of an effort reaching out to the community, telling us that you were standing with us. So many of us didn't know. But one question I do have for you. You participated with the mayor in the takeover of the New York Armory. The community was not involved in this process. We didn't have charrettes. We didn't hear from you guys. As a matter of fact, I never saw you down here until tonight. This is my first time seeing you here in my community. So how am I to look at those interactions you've had with the mayor of this village who has taken that armory away from us, and he's put a polluted bunch of junk cars over there by the water tower. And we had to get on him to say, clean it up. He did what he thought was good by just moving a couple of things around, but it's a junkyard over there with a nursery school. We've done nothing really positive for that armory. When Bishop Otho White was alive, he was the only man that cared about that building. And we should have named the building after him, but we didn't. We decided a park. So how am I to look at you knowing what you did over there? You did that. You were in control of that, and you never came to us.
Okay, I think there's a couple of answers to address that. One is when I first got elected, Mayor Kennedy spoke about the Freeport Armory and giving it back. Years ago, it was the villages, and he spoke about that to me and Senator Brooks and Assemblywoman Darling. The armory was in Taylor's district. It wasn't in the part of Freeport that I represent. So it was her bill. I actually did go on it, but I always do speak to my constituents. And at that time, I was getting tons of emails from the constituents that I represent in Freeport. And I don't represent this area. Where this church is, I don't represent this area. So at that time, I got a lot of emails from constituents more in South Freeport that were telling me they wanted this. They liked the idea for the village of Freeport to get this armory. So as far as I was concerned, my job is to listen to the constituents I represent in Freeport. Freeport's a very big town, so I think I have about 25,000. I think Assemblywoman Darling has about 25,000. So although I am so sorry to hear about the community that wasn't my constituents was so against that, I wasn't aware of that because the constituents I represent wanted it. So, and also, I never knew it was going to wind up being a dump because Mayor Kennedy assured us that making this switch, he talked about all the things he wanted to do with it, and he was going to go to the community centers and excuse me, speak to the community about it. So that's where the Freeport Armory is as far as I'm concerned. And so I did support it, and I did vote yes on it. But that was the information I had at the time, and I didn't actually even have one constituent. I didn't have one constituent email or call me to tell me they didn't want it. Now, when Cleveland Park came about, before it came about, the school district called me. The school board called me. I spoke to the superintendent. They also hired a lobbyist. I spoke to them. I had meetings with the school district, all prior to that bill coming out to the floor. So, in this case, I had, not only was it the school board, so of course the school board, yeah, I would be listening to them, but a lot of the school board members are my constituents. So I listened, and I didn't vote for that bill. I voted no, and as a result, I'm still being punished by the mayor for it. So, you know, I will stand up always. I always listen to my constituents, and I will always stand up for them.
Thank you so much. Yes.
Good. You know what? Those New York State, with the governor had assigned, those were children's zone areas. They were children. I remember I went to Bishop.
Excuse me, beloved.
I went to
There's
Bishop.
a question, sis. Let me have the question.
The question is that those armories, the ones in New York City and all over the New York State, those armories was assigned to be children's zone activity areas, because I went to Bishop White in reference to that, what was happening with the armory, what was done in...
I need a question, beloved. I need a question.
In Harlem, the 369th Street Armory is a children's zone area. This was supposed to be a children's zone area too, but by the state. But people want to do their own, they have their own agenda. And my thing is, how we're going to save our children, and how we're going to win, and how we as citizens of the United States going to be able to make this country what it's supposed to be.
Thank you so
The
much.
needs of all the people, not certain individuals and people personal privilege.
Thank you so much for that. We need a 30-second response, please.
I don't know about, all the armories around the state, but I do know there was an initiative in the past number of years to return armories to the original municipality that owned them. So that's about all I know about that. I mean, as far as children go, I work very hard to deliver services to children all throughout the district. And one thing I didn't get to mention earlier is a big priority of mine is to reduce gun violence. We already have passed a lot of common sense gun legislation, but we really have to do much, much more.
Thank you so much. Yes, dear, a question.
Good evening. I just have one question for you. I'm only allowed one. But do you believe that there's a border crisis?
That's a federal issue. So as a New York State Assemblywoman, I'm focused on New York State issues and on issues in the district. So whether I think there's a crisis or not, there's nothing I can do about the border because that's federal. That's why we would want to elect Congresswoman Gillen to the Congress, because she would be someone that could work on any border crisis or whatever they can do to improve immigration and all of that. That's all federal issues.
Thank you so much. Thank you so
Whether
much.
Thank you. I
Thank
have
you.
to clarify my question. I'm not talking about you as a politician. I'm talking about you as an American citizen. Do you believe that there is a border crisis?
I don't have a comment really one way or the other because I really haven't studied that issue.
Let us talk about the fact that you are here because you are a politician.
Yeah,
So
I say I'm a government
Hold
official.
on. This is for the purposes of just clarification. We're not interested in personal views. We're interested in views that are going to benefit our communities. Okay, not what you think personally. That's why there's that separation.
Yes, I know.
Give us a closing, if you would, beloved Assemblywoman, for stopping by. We say thank you. We have another candidate to get to, so go right ahead.
Well, I thank you for this opportunity, and just to know, I am fully, the people in the school district. The constituent mentioned that he didn't know how I voted, but because he's not my constituent, he wouldn't know. Like, I have a newsletter that goes out to constituents. I have a website where constituents can look at my voting record, but because I'm not his representative, that's why he himself wouldn't know that. So that's something for people to remember here. There's two of us who represent Freeport, so if you have to check who your representative is. So I can only speak for myself, and I know for myself, I'm in touch with the school district. I attend all the events I can. Children are very important to me. I go to read. I do civic classes. So I am someone that is there to help all, to give services to all, and to I'm endorsed by police. I'm endorsed by almost every union you could have because I have a big tent. I give support and really want equality in health and services for all.
So we will see you if you're returned. We will
Yes.
see you and we will be able to access you, and you have your information on your website. So even if I
Yes.
don't live in your district, I certainly can go to the World Wide Web and become informed.
Yes, indeed. And I
Thank
do
you.
go to really everything I am invited to in Freeport, grand openings, all of the things I'm invited to, school events. So I go really the peace marches. So there's not much I miss in Freeport.
Very good.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for joining us.
You're welcome.
Absolutely. Give the Assemblywoman a hand, beloved. And we'll go sweeping through the city. I was just doing that since we're doing a changeover, that's all. Wonderful. Well, this is a familiar name that's coming to us at this particular point in time. She certainly has been in our communities for quite some time, and we're talking about the Assemblywoman, Mikael Szilagyi. Yes?
Good evening, everyone. I know the hour is late, but we're almost there, right?
Almost there. Why don't you introduce yourself to those Assemblywomen who do not know who you are?
I appreciate everyone. My name is Assemblywoman Mikael Salage. I represent the 22nd Assembly District, which is encompassing of Elmont, Valley Stream, Franklin Square, Floral Park, North Woodmere, and some of the areas around there. It's a pleasure to be in this community, be able to opportunity to address Zion Cathedral, and I thank Bishop White, who has been a family friend for a very long time. You know, before I was elected, I was a sister of Nassau County Legislator Carrie A. Salage, and I remember coming here many of a times and worshiping with you all, and now it's a pleasure to be here on the floor asking for your support and vote as I run for re-election.
Wait a minute, you were his sister?
I am his sister, yeah. Well, sometimes, Carrie, I just, sorry.
Absolutely.
But, you know, so I'm also Deputy Majority Leader of the New York State Assembly. I'm also Chair of the Black, Hispanic, Puerto Rican, Asian Caucus, which is the largest organization in the state legislature, comprised of both the Assembly and Senate. It's an elected position. So it's really a pleasure to be here because, you know, I want to represent the suburban Black and Latinx communities that are often forgotten when we talk about communities of color. And so, can I continue more?
You are Deputy Speaker?
No, I'm Deputy Majority Leader.
Deputy Majority Leader. Well,
so that's a position where I help run the floor.
Yes.
So my job is to make sure that the Majority Leader is taken care of. And if she's not available, I am in charge of making sure bills come up on the floor, making sure that, you know, debate is going well. You know, if there's bills that they need advice on, I'd say, hey, look, let's get this bill going. So it's a big position. It's not Deputy Speaker like Earlene Hooper, but, you know, it's comparable.
Well, she's not the Deputy Speaker either.
Yeah, former Deputy Speaker.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's keep moving. So how long have you been in the New York State Assembly?
So I was elected in 2012, so I'm walking on my 10th year. So it's been a pleasure to serve that community, Elmont and Valley Stream and the areas in the state legislature, and I'm going for another term, which is very exciting.
Wonderful. So what are your top 3 priorities as you embark upon another election cycle?
So I want to talk a little about what I've done in the past. You know, I'm very big into universal pre-K. As Assemblywoman Griffin said, you know, when we get children young and empower them, they are better citizens. And so in Long Island, we had the lowest amount of pre-K slots in the state. And so I was able to actually create an organization on Long Island, which is a Long Island Regional Technical Center, which mapped out the pathway of how we can get universal pre-K here on Long Island. And so as we are mapping out what we needed more teachers and we needed more slots. And not only slots within school districts, we also needed slots within community-based organizations. Because sometimes parents the paradigm of, you know, 8 to 3 doesn't fit into most parents' world. They, you know, work early and late. And so they need a community-based organization that can provide that enhanced education, that long-term. I'm a leader in the climate crisis. When we talk about disadvantaged communities, making sure that we get, you know, the funding that we need to fight and combat climate crisis. And when it comes to seniors, I'm a really big advocate in healthcare. I'm a member of the health committee, and so we've been championing so many initiatives to help senior citizens get lower prescription drugs and also access to hearing aids. We all know that hearing is very important, but if anyone has purchased a hearing aid, it's thousands upon thousands of dollars. I have a bill in the state legislature that will decrease the amount and cost of hearing aids by making it acceptable for coverage from health insurance.
Wonderful.
Yeah, I heard that. I need that. So we need your help pushing that.
Give me your top 3.
So next year, I'm fighting for a bill about reparations. We know reparations, yeah. It's a topic that we need to discuss because, you know, Black communities have been through slavery, Jim Crow, segregation, redlining, mass incarceration. And so it's time that we get what we deserve. So we have a bill that actually creates a commission similar to other states like California, North Carolina, which analyzes what reparations should be in New York State. The core component is compensation, because, you know, we want our money back, right? Amen? We're in church, right? But it also talks about what we can do to empower Black communities, because we know that compared to white families, we have 10 times as less wealth as white individuals and white families. When it comes to, you know, just housing, we don't have access to good quality housing stock. And so reparations is going to look at our issues holistically and analyze it for what we can do and what New York State can do to improve our condition.
Wonderful.
So, and then, energy crisis. We see that the price of energy is increasing, right? This winter is going to be hard on our communities. So I was just with U.S. Senator Schumer advocating for more money for HEAP, which is like a energy benefit program. So if you don't have heat, you can get additional monies for oil or for gas. That's great. We also last year did money for utility arrears, so people who were behind on their utilities, we actually allocated money through the state budget to give families money to pay off their utility bills. And that was very successful, but that didn't touch middle income families, suburban families like us. And so I want to make sure that monies is allocated to us for utility arrears.
What about our education systems?
That's we have a political fight when it comes to education funding. There are communities that are of higher wealth that are getting a lot of state aid, while our communities are at a disadvantage. We're not getting as much as we deserve. So we need to look at the paradigm of funding. And so next year, I want to do that. It's funny because many city members, people who live within New York City, were complaining about property taxes. It made me laugh. And I asked my colleague, how much do you pay in property taxes? And they said, oh, I pay $3,000, $4,000. It's so expensive. I was like, what? I dropped the mic. And so there's going to be a conversation next year, I believe, about property taxes in New York City. If they dare do anything, we have to talk about property taxes on Long Island and make sure that we get equity for our places, especially communities, because we pay a lot more compared to other white areas. So, there's a lot of conversations that we're going to have. Those are a couple of highlights. Someone mentioned teacher diversity. So I also have a bill about teacher diversity. So what happens is that we, as a community of color, we're qualified to become teachers, but the school districts don't want us. They purposely want to hire their friends and family. They don't put up job listings. They basically do the hiring process in secret. So I want to make sure that all that is transparent. I want to make sure that schools list the jobs online. They have to have it open for a certain period of time so that people can apply. It has to be a transparent process where all the candidates are interviewed. And so it's called the HOPE Act. And I wrote it with the NAACP. And we are going to push for it next year to make sure there's transparency in hiring so that we can get our teachers in New York State as diverse as a student body.
Well, you have been serving very effectively
Trying
for
to be like you.
Stop it. For several
It's my girl,
years.
right?
Okay, it's getting
Here's my
late.
friend. I love this woman. You got some good questions. I'm sweating right now.
Look, I'm harmless. So I would ask you the same question. Do you believe that there is a border crisis?
Yeah, so I'm actually, I'm part of the National Conference of State Legislatures. It's a national organization for state legislators, and I'm on the Immigration Task Force. So actually in December, I'm going to the border to find out what's going on.
Praise God.
Yeah, because it's very important to me. I actually toured HERC, which is, migrants, the asylum seekers coming in New York City were coming in by the busload, and they were being put into the shelter system. So I actually went to New York City to see what they're doing with these asylum seekers. I think there's a racial justice issue at the border first, okay? Because black migrants who come over are automatically deported. All right? That's an issue. I'm Haitian American, the first Haitian ever elected in the state legislature. Haitians were whipped at the border and they were immediately deported.
I remember,
no due process like what's required by the law, no opportunity. So there is a problem at the border. I believe in secure border. I believe that we need an immigration process because it's America. We are built on immigration. There's a crisis because we need to solve it. We need to look at ourselves in the mirror as America and realize that we need immigrants. Immigrants work in so many different facets. We have a labor shortage, and many of these people who are migrants, who are asylum seekers, could work in those positions. And so we need to look at ourselves, realize that immigration is important, and fix what's going on at the border.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yes?
Also, Haiti. I've been going to Haiti since 2004.
Thank you.
So
God
I'm
bless you.
clear.
Thank you.
But that's not the point. The point is the charter schools. The charter schools, we're paying for charter schools in Hempstead, Freeport, Roosevelt, and I don't know, Freeport, Uniondale, and Amityville. They bypass Mineola, they bypass Garden City, but and we paying double tax. Initially, when they came into our communities, we protested them, but they had babysitting from 7 to 7, and they're not working in the best interest of telling the greatness of our children, developing the greatness of our children, and preparing them and training them, preparing them so they could be successful. And then they don't have to meet the qualifications that we had to do in public school. I'm a former
Queen Mother
educator.
Moore, what's the question, beloved?
The question is, in reference to these charter schools only in our communities, and we paying double taxes. And they get the charter school get the money before the public school get the money, and the government really should be paying for public education so that the communities like Roosevelt and Freeport and Hempstead won't be overburdened by the upper middle class.
Thank you so much.
I agree with you.
And as a Republican we pay federal, state, and local taxes,
Thank you,
whether
sis.
Republican
Thank you,
or Democrat. It's our money from California to
Thank
New
you,
York.
Sister Moore. Thank you so
The
much.
deduction
Come on
was
and
an issue.
answer.
The Republican Party on a federal level did disenfranchise us, and the person currently running for governor supported us being double taxed on a federal level. I want to add that. But second, charter schools were supposed to be an experimental initiative to determine how we can make the public schools better, but we never took that experiment and applied it to public school. I do believe that public school is the best and that we need to support. It's all with the funding formula. We need to figure out how do we fund charter schools, not letting them suck the money out of the public schools. That's the problem. And so, I'm not against school choice. If you want to send your kid to this, that, and a third, I believe this is America, and I believe in rights. I don't like to take away people's rights to body autonomy or education, but we do have to figure out that funding mechanism so that we're not sucking the money out of public schools.
So then perhaps people should send children to private school that is not funded by public monies in order to be able to seek the type of education perhaps that they want.
So there's a problem. The Supreme Court disenfranchised us. The Supreme Court actually ruled that private schools can get public monies now.
Public money. Yeah.
That was a ruling last year amongst everything that was happening. So there is going to be a conversation, I believe, I don't know if it's going to be pushed, in which private schools might apply for monies up in Albany for funding. Again, money that comes from the state should go to public schools. That's what I believe in, and that's the conversation that we have to have.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
So, any other questions?
Any other? Okay, so Assemblywoman Szilagyi, we thank you for joining us
Can I just
in
quick
this
closing?
forum. And before, if you all don't let me do my job, and before we adjourn for the evening, we would like for you to give us the reason why we should vote for you in your closing statement. You've got 1 minute.
So I was also successful in giving a tax deduction for seniors. We led that. Judy Griffin and many of the Long Island delegation has pushed a tax incentive where your property tax for seniors, if you're under a certain income level, is reduced by 50%. The Nassau County and Town of Hempstead has initiated that. In addition, I was able to get more money for community-based organizations to fight gun violence. We know that gun violence in our community can best be fought by us, and by funding our local community groups, that's how we're gonna stop the gun violence. So when the governor declared the state of emergency, we lose some of those procurement process, and we're looking for community-based organizations to get funding against gun violence. But I want you to vote for me. If you know people who live in my community, please tell them to support Mikhail Szilagyi, because I'm running against someone who is an insurrectionist. They believe that what happened on January 6th was a dialogue and a discourse. They are endorsed by Giuliani and Trump and believe in election integrity for them, for white supremacists, and not for community of color. And so we have a serious fight going on in our area. We need to go to the polls because our democracy is at stake. I'm serious, y'all. Our democracy is at stake, and the other side wants to take away our rights. So we need to go to the polls in masses, and we need to vote. Tuesday, November 8th is election day. There's early voting. Please go out and early vote. We haven't been early voting enough, so now they're questioning whether they should keep early voting. So if you're going by yourself, I need you to bring 10 people. Be serious this election. Go out and vote, and please vote for me, Mikhail Szilagyi, for re-election. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, beloved, we are right on, we're hitting that mark, and we are going to call for our bishop, who has been so gracious in hosting us this evening. And let me say, it has been indeed another honor to join you on tonight and to be able to facilitate our discourse. Hats off to you. Salute the bishop, please, beloved. And I say that, Bishop, because everybody wouldn't let this type of a forum go forth. And so the beauty in links and lineage and legacy is that you're going, every round goes higher. And that's what you are doing with respect to allowing this particular forum to take place. So we thank you.
Can we salute the moderator for this evening, the one and only Sister Minister, the Reverend Dr. Soretta McKnight. Thank you so very much. Thank you, Sister Shelley Brazley. Thank all of our candidates for sharing with us on tonight. And please allow me to say that the expressed views of the candidates spoken tonight are not representative of the theological or ethical positions of Zion Cathedral Church of God in Christ. This was an opportunity for the community to hear candidates and their postures, positions, and expressions concerning your concerns. This was not a church service debating theological, vital, contemporary issues.
That's right, Bishop.
And so I appreciate you for having that flexibility and latitude. Once again, please, our forefathers fought, and many of them died, for the right to participate in the democratic process of voting in this nation. This is a seed that has once again been planted. We will have this forum again with all of the elected officials. As soon as they have been sworn in, we're going to call them back to this platform to express our agenda and what we want to see them accomplish for our community. So get ready for that next forum, and we'll have several next year leading up, of course, to the 2024 election that is pivotal. But this one, the midterm, sets the stage. And so all of you who have joined our live stream on tonight, and then the thousands who will view by this time tomorrow, we want you to share this program. Please make sure that you are engaged, that you are participating, that you are indeed sharing this information with the beloved community of believers. God bless everyone. Have a beautiful night. Get home safely. And don't forget, November 8th,
Yes. Vote.
make sure you cast your vote. God bless you tonight.